welcome to this video and welcome to my channel. My name is Emma and today I'm going to be talking about my 5 favorite things that I read during my YouTube hiatus. So I didn't read a ton while I wasn't making YouTube videos, but I read enough that I wanted to kind of give a recap of the best and brightest things that I read while I wasn't making videos and the things that I really enjoyed and kind of talk through them, give my star ratings and all that good stuff. I do have my new Halloween mug here today because as we all know, August is pre-Halloween and holidays can never start too early in my book. I love holidays. So this will be holding my pumpkin spice coffee throughout the duration of this video. So the first book that I want to talk about, I actually vlogged the very beginning of me reading it in my last reading vlog before I stopped making videos in November, and that is The Wanton Future Witches by Alix E. Harrow. Since I read the majority of it after I stopped making videos, I figured it would still count, especially since it has gone on my all-time favorite list. This book, definitely 5 stars. It's on my all-time favorite list. I've recommended it to everyone, raved about it to everyone. This book, before it came out, was pitched as Suffragettes meets Magic, and that is a good byline, but what it's really about is the 3 Eastwood sisters, Juniper, Agnes, and Bella, who live very different lives. They were all torn apart by a tragedy in their family in their teenage young adult years, and it's been very many years since then when they've been living apart, and some circumstances bring them back together, and they are wanting to obtain voting rights for women as well as bring magic back to the world. So they are suffragette witches. They use the momentum of the suffragette movement to also put magic into the world. And the magic that the sisters are using is that kind of traditional double toil and trouble magic. They need specific materials at a specific time of day, and there's specific words that you have to say to create the spell. And one of my favorite things about these sister witches is that they all have their own very distinct plot lines, character development, their own kind of side characters. It's almost as though each sister is her own main character and then she has her own kind of group of side characters. Each perspective is incredibly distinct. They each have their own very distinct voice. There's a lot of character development, a lot of processing trauma, a lot of anger, a lot of good feminism, a lot of magic, a lot of joy in this book. It is, I can't recommend it enough to literally everyone. There's some blood, some gore, some romance. This book has it all. Next up is The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson. I read this for one of my classes, one of my kind of interdisciplinary seminar classes that I had to take to finish out my honors program requirements for my school. And this is all about America's Great Migration. And this book is just a masterpiece. It's ginormous, and I would love the chance to go back and read it again because I had to read it so quickly during my class because we had so many different units and each unit had like 2 books in it. I would love the chance to get to go back and read this over again. I definitely will be trying to do that soon. So like I said, it's all about the Great Migration, and it weaves together very personal stories from very detailed interviews that Isabel Wilkerson conducted, as well as chapters of just historical narrative kind of explaining kind of traditional nonfiction book style, but then there's also her telling the real life stories of people who participated in the Great Migration. And those stories are so heartfelt, so valuable because those people are few and far between nowadays. This book was published in 2010, and I am so impressed that she found those people to interview. She's a masterful history crafter, and I would love to check out her other books, but first I want to reread this one. I'm gonna give this a 4 to 4.5 stars, and I think just because I haven't been able to really take it in. The rating might change once I like sit down and fully read it through and take my time with it. But for now, this was definitely a favorite from my period of time not making videos. So please forgive me. The next one is a series. So back in the day, several years ago, I started reading The Discovery of Witches. I think I also had a period on this channel where I was trying to read it again. I failed reading that book 2 times. And so finally, I picked it up one more time. I read it. I loved it. And so I wanted to continue with the series. I read the whole series. I actually am having trouble remembering when I read the first book, but I have only the second and third on hand. I absolutely adore these books. I went into a reading slump because of these books, because I couldn't find anything that suited me like these books did. They are everything. I would say 4 to 4.5 stars depending on the book. So this is another history meets magic series, but this one has vampires and demons, which makes it extra spicy, and also actual time travel, which is one of the greatest parts of the series. This series is all about Diana Bishop, who is a professor and an academic and a scholar and a researcher at Oxford University. She's a descendant of the Salem Bishop witches, and claims that as part of her history, but doesn't really believe in magic. Diana is living her regular academic life until she magically pulls a magic book out of the recesses of Oxford that she doesn't know, but is highly coveted by many magical creatures in this hidden world that she doesn't know about. And those creatures start to come out of the woodwork trying to kill her to get access to this book that she has discovered. Diana also meets a vampire named Matthew, who has been searching for the book as well, but takes it up upon himself to protect her, and they fall madly in love. The first book and like the half of the second book, the relationship is really toxic. They both really grow and change and become a very healthy, loving couple. And it's just great. Can't recommend it enough. I totally adore it. Like I said, it gave me a reading slump and ruined me for everything else that I was thinking about reading for like a couple weeks. The next thing that I read that I want to talk about is the Jane Eyre podcast audiobook by Charlotte Brontë, narrated by Sarah Coombs, that is on Spotify. It was such a good audiobook. I've never read Jane Eyre before. It's one of those classics that I have somehow just never come in contact with. So Jane Eyre is a Bildungsroman about a young woman named Jane who is discovering independence. I think independence is the biggest thing in this book. She just wants to do what she wants to do, and she wants people to get out of her way. And while that may sound kind of rude, she is the sweetest soul. And when something doesn't suit her, Jane doesn't mess around. She will tell somebody, this is not okay for me, this doesn't work for me, and then she'll peace. And I love that about Jane Eyre. I think she's one of the coolest characters that I've ever read about, even though she can kind of grind your gears sometimes because you're like, oh my God, you are so over emotional. I think it works in her favor because she's very in tune with herself. She's very aware of her wants and her needs. She definitely achieves her goals. Sometimes when she's rude along the way, at least she is being true to herself. If you have Spotify and you want to read Jane Eyre, I would definitely recommend listening to the audiobook on there. And the fifth and final book that I'm going to mention today is The Starless by Erin Morgenstern. I actually just finished this last week before I started vlogging again and all that good stuff. But Starless is getting a 4.5 stars from me. Oh, Jane Eyre is a 5-star. So anyway, Starless, Erin Morgenstern, author of the Night Circus. It is poetry, it is fantasy, it is magic galore. There's a secret society element that gives me Da Vinci Code vibes, but like this book is the kind of book where you just need to start reading it and trust the person who recommended it to you that it's good, and just go with it and give it like 50 pages. Because if you stop right at the beginning, you're not going to get anywhere. But if you give it 50 to 100 pages, you're going to get sucked in and you're going to love it. If you like books about secret societies, books about Alice through the looking glass style falling through a door and discovering another world, read this book. Pick it up if you haven't already, because it's just fantastic. So those were my 5 favorite books that I read, including one series, during my period of time where I wasn't making YouTube videos. A lot of them are pretty popular, but I wanted to go ahead and share them because I majorly scored over the last several months. I haven't read a ton, but mostly everything that I've read has been a winner, even if it didn't make it into this video. Thank you for watching. Thanks for coming and hanging out with me. I hope I will see you again soon. But until then, peace and blessings. I need to come up with a better outro.